media comment, as less media buyer in my mind now, and more about the brand and entertainment. What do you find works? Can you give us some sense of what you found to be particularly innovative strategies that you've seen, that because there's such a tsunami of stuff everybody's producing, everybody's a media company?
Yeah, good question. I think that there is a tsunami of stuff. I think that's really well said. We've actually found that of all of the branded content that's created on YouTube, 50% is seen less than 1,000 times. So I think what's happening now is brands think that they're publishers, they're not really publishers. So they're creating all this stuff, nobody's really watching it, nobody really cares. And there's some of these things that, Jean-Claude Van Damme's Epic Split is a great example of something that really did work. And it was a great video. It showed how the Volvo trucks actually work. If you actually look on the YouTube page, there's videos of actually how the mechanics of the trucks was made. Incredible amount of views. People saw that. They were interested to learn more. I think for us, content obviously comes up a lot. One, it has to be connected to distribution. That's the most important thing. But
does distribution mean media partner? What is distribution?
Anything. It's just, if we create something, it has to have a purpose in the marketing mix. So there has to be an audience that sees it. But more importantly than that, what we're doing and what we're seeing is that sometimes the way you think about your content strategy can change your mind. And so content isn't just a video that you put out. It could be something that is connected to a live event that you wouldn't normally do. It could be some interactive experience in Times Square. It could be a way of talking about your company because you're now creating content that you haven't thought about. We have one client with Neighborly started, we just wanted to do a test to create some content with them, and it was really successful, and it actually reframed the way they thought about their marketing. So we like to think about what's the purpose and how can it serve the greater good as a person.
Okay. Brian, you talked to a lot of clients, and also you're very well versed in the newspaper business and did a lot of Philly.com. Where do you see, there's a lot of money being spent, sprinkled across a lot of new platforms and shiny new toys. Where do you see the smart money going in your mind and the dumb money? Give us some sense of sort of what clients are telling you and what you're advising them as well in terms of how to be making good bets in this particular environment.
You see a lot of, from time to time, you see CMOs talking about content because it's a box that they feel they need to check, and they create content. And frankly, it's kind of boring. And if you have to go back and have the conversation a few months later, it's, well, how much traffic are we really getting? And you do the dollars and cents and evaluation, it's hard to do it. I think one of the things you're saying is you have to have great connectors, so you have to be linked with great brands, like some of the brands here, some of the newspaper brands are as well. And you can't forget the importance of making it interesting and making it engaging, and finding other ways to get people to come back to it. Perhaps just, something that you can play or do after you've read it and learned about it, things like that. But I gotta say, one of the great things, when you're defending a large business, that's, which is what a lot of big media companies are, newspapers as well as others, you tend to kind of be in a defensive mode. What's great now is when I see newspapers, particularly who I have great relationships with, and we represent the Newspaper Association of America, is that they're realizing we have a powerful brand. So you see like Tribune Publishing, Chicago, LA, they're really embracing innovation, and they're doing things that they wouldn't have done before in terms of data, video, etc. Which, when you have a traditional newsroom, which is why they win Pulitzer Prizes, etc., as I had in Philadelphia, some of that is kind of scary. And that line, blurring. In fact, I had a great editor I recruited who's still there, Bill Narrowmouth, who's on Pulitzer Prize winner. When we started to put ads on the front page, one of the things I did is I, obviously showed them the New York Times and the DD's, Nixon's, etc., and I promised that they wouldn't be, 2-for-1 deals and sleepies kind of thing. They would be elegant advertising. But I also went back and found newspapers from 80 and 100 years ago. I said, gee, look at this. They had ads on the front of the Philadelphia Inquirer in 1880. So it's really, we're kind of going back to our roots. And of course, with newspapers, the challenge is when I got Citizens Bank to sponsor a column in the business section, 365. Within 5 days, the columnist wrote a story about the salary of the president and CEO of Citizens Bank, which was not where he thought his ad was going to be running, and underneath these big slams for his increase in salary. So I go back to it, it's about being entertaining, never forgetting that. Never forgetting that even though your client wants to communicate X, Y, Z, we gotta do it in a way that somebody's really gonna wanna read it, engage with it, send it on to other people as well, because there's a lot of boring stuff that money made ways.
And so I want to go to, I'm thinking in terms of not closer to say National Magazine Awards, in terms of the aspiration of Forbes, and your top contributors are not necessarily Forbes staff. In fact, I think it's a tech writer that's he's a journalist, but he's not on Forbes staff. Give me a sense of sort of, from the Forbes content point of view and brand voice, when I come to you, how many advertisers are coming to you for the Forbes content that's generated solely by Forbes? How many are looking at Forbes now as really sort of a partner in helping them to, as clients, elevate their own content? Because every brand wants to be a thought leader, not everyone, but a lot of them do. So how should they be looking at you? How do you help them understand the right way to position their brands?
Yeah, in almost all cases, I'm looking at it in both ways. As, if you ask a marketer, do you want the right 10,000 or 100,000 people, or do you want the 10 million people? They'll say both.
So the barbell, they want all
So
that.
they want both sides of it. And the way we're working, as Brian was saying, everyone's a content creator these days. Marketers are all content creators. And one of the lessons they've learned that it's not easy to make good content. And what we've done with BrandVoice, the concept is, just as it says, in the brand's voice. The same as our contributor network, it's 1,500 independent writers or freelancers who write to the site. Many of them are paid, many of them choose not to be paid. And they write in their original voice too. It's all under the Forbes brand. But that brand voice is a distinction in that, as I said, we're in the early stages of the shift to thought leadership away from the Sleepy's product. It's sort of
They're all Sleepy's, I don't know.
Yeah, I know, Sleepy's is a great voice, but I would say,
It's not a front page.
and as we shift through that, marketers are going to learn to get better and better at producing content in an authentic voice, in a quality way that contributes to the conversation rather than in a roast
So
conversation.
is there an example out there, Forbes or otherwise, you think that's best in class? I mean, it doesn't have to be the best, but give us an example of what really works, or even that hybrid model you suggested.
So, again, our readers will determine that in many cases. Now, I'll give you an example where we helped a marketer achieve what they were trying to do. But they published, the radical thing we did is the brands published directly on to the site the same way the 1,500 contributors published directly onto the site, the same way Forbes staff writers published directly onto the site. And they get the same sort of rankings in terms of best, hottest, trending stories, and oftentimes you'll see a well-written brand voice as one of our top 10 or trending stories. Now, in a lot of cases, as marketers do find their way in creating content, they come to us and ask, where can we, where is great content that we're creating that can help facilitate them to create good content? And with AT&T, which ran a second cover on Forbes a couple of, about 3 issues ago.
30 under 30.
The 30 under 30, and what it was they participated, someone had mentioned, it was Brian, in terms of at conferences. They participated in the conference itself. They were filming, company birth stories in terms of how entrepreneurs got started. They chose one of the winners of our Shark Tank-like competition there, who developed a soccer ball that generates energy through the kinetic energy of the soccer ball that actually can then be generating power and electricity in areas that don't have a grid. So they use that content to promote what the kind of stories that they want to be telling. So it's a combination of the two. But where we have distinguished, we are not having our writers and editors writing for clients.
Right,
We do
that's a
have,
mistake.
well, I think it's
Of course, the writers should be doing a combination of both.
I think stake on our net is, again, we're in these early stages, and we'll see which models actually work out. But that does, to me, get into that obfuscation of what is this, who's writing this, or whose voice is this, and
How enthusiastic are they?
Yeah.
So David, you've got a situation where the talent can go straight to the brands now and doesn't even necessarily, need to have that partner in the middle, helping them to create content or even necessarily distribute. I'm thinking of even Mondelez has Blink Studios just inked a big deal with Google. If I was a TV, company, I think I'd be pretty nervous about that. But give me a sense of sort of, first of all, who are some of the stars we should be watching, and how are they engaging in interesting ways? Because we've long seen, they all have their production companies too, but it doesn't always work out well when they're going straight and creating their own product. So what's working in your mind, and what are some of the innovative deals that you've put together?
Well, I mean, there's, as many people have said in this panel, there's a high volume of stuff out there. What we're seeing that's working is a lot of our top creators are partnering directly with brands. You're right, without necessarily middlemen. I guess you could refer to these middlemen as major media, studios, networks. I think from the studio network perspective, you look at the television industry, certainly from our perspective, you can make an argument that it's the healthiest that it's ever been, and yet ratings are going down, right? I mean, we know what millennials are doing. Millennials are not, signing up for cable bills and mobiles, on the rise. So for our creators, I think we'll talk with our traditional creators, there's just a lot of room out there to do a lot of, creative things.
Traditional creator, you say not a YouTube star?
Well, I'm going to get to YouTube star in a second. You look at a guy like Ron Howard, right? And you think about the project that he partnered with Canon on, called Project Imagination, where Ron was at the center of a really interesting content-driven campaign. Ron helped sit down with Canon to invent what it was. And at its core, Canon was asking its consumers and audiences to submit really unique pictures in different verticals. Ron came in to identify, the best 10 in various verticals. And then literally, with the help of his daughter Bryce, from the winning 10 different pictures, they strung together a 20-minute narrative story. It was a huge, huge success. You had massive engagement in terms of the UGC, people submitting photos. And then they actually let people into that fourth wall, let them see how they actually created this content, which was an amazing story and won many different awards and really moved the needle for Canon. Ron is also a very inventive guy with his partner Brian Grazer, and they actually helped to launch a digital studio called Newform. Newform Digital Studios is 100% just operating in digital and partnering, now we'll talk about YouTube, partnering with a lot of massive YouTube stars to build IP. It's been an absolute phenomenon to see what's happened in the last 24 months with these YouTube stars who we now represent, a handful of them. And there are so many different ways that they are in the marketplace. They have massive audience, massive reach. You look at some of the bigger YouTube stars who have 4, 5, 10 million subscribers, and I think it's fair to challenge that the engagement levels between these YouTubers versus mid-tier cable stations is actually higher. You have kids out there who are literally sitting by their phones waiting for this next video, which allows us a lot of opportunities to partner with traditional talent who are some of the bigger, movie makers out there to produce 90-minute films that are being released like Camp Dakota, which we were talking about earlier, as a transactional VOD product. YouTubers are doing tours, they're doing books, they're doing big brand deals, they're launching merchandise. They are brands and businesses unto themselves. It's almost the new way that talent is found, and for a while it was, okay, which of these YouTubers are gonna, jump over into traditional TV and film? I think some of them will. We all know about Grace Helbig, and she's a big YouTube star, was born out of YouTube and now has a show on E! But I don't think it's really about that for a lot of these YouTubers. I think, and I should say YouTubers and Viners and Snapchatters, I mean, it's not just YouTubers, let's talk about digital endemic talent. They're comfortable on their platform. They don't need to go and get a host of a TV show. They don't need to necessarily jump into film. Do they want to, experiment there and have that be a part of their business? Yes. You look at another example, Marriott has created Marriott Studios. Again, an example of a brand that is acting like, a publisher and very forward-thinking. Has partnered with a number of our YouTube clients just to do traditional development deals and saying, okay, YouTube, we're coming here, tell us your ideas, let's partner, let's build some content, and let's get it out there.